Oh, wow. I'm so sorry to hear that. Well, we will definitely continue to keep you in our prayers. Thanks so much for sharing this with me, and we'll make sure we talk to you again soon. Okay, yeah, thanks. Bye now. Oh, Grow Kids, hi. Oh, guys, it's so nice to be with you again. And I'm so sorry for my bad hero manners. I actually try never to be on the phone when others are around. But just to let you know, the reason that I was on the phone was because I had a friend who was having a really bad day, right? Because sometimes we all have a bad day. And I just really wanted to call him and encourage and pray for him. So thanks so much for your patience. But guys, let's get to our Bible hero of the day. Now, our hero was part of many miracles, including turning his staff, that's right, into a snake. Ah, snakes! I hate snakes! Huh. Well, he did lots of other amazing things too, like part the waters in the Red Sea and many other miracles. Do you guys know who our hero is yet? Well, we're gonna have to wait a little longer, so let's first get up, take some time, and worship Jesus through singing together.
May the Lord bless you.
May the Lord bless you.
May the Lord keep you.
May the Lord keep you.
Make his face to shine.
Make his face to shine.
Shine upon you.
Shine upon you.
May the Lord bless you.
May the Lord bless you.
May the Lord keep you.
May the Lord keep you.
Make his face to shine.
Make his face to shine.
Shine upon you.
Shine upon you.
May the Lord bless you.
May the Lord bless you.
May the Lord keep you.
May the Lord keep you.
Make his face to shine.
Make his face to shine.
Shine upon you.
Shine upon you.
May the Lord bless you.
May the Lord bless you.
May the Lord keep you.
May the Lord keep you.
Make his face to shine.
Make his face to shine.
Shine upon you.
Shine upon you.
And may he be gracious to you. And lift up his countenance on you. And give you peace. And give you peace. May the Lord bless you.
May the Lord bless you.
May the Lord keep you.
May the Lord keep you.
Make his face to shine.
Make his face to shine.
Shine upon you.
Shine upon you.
May the Lord bless you.
May the Lord bless you.
May the Lord keep you.
May the Lord keep you.
Make his face to shine.
Make his face to shine.
Shine upon you.
Shine upon you.
And may he be gracious to you. And lift up his countenance on you. And may he be gracious to you. And lift up his countenance on you. And give you peace.
And give you peace.
And give you peace. And give you peace.
And give you peace.
And give you peace. May the Lord bless you.
May the Lord bless you.
May the Lord keep you.
May the Lord keep you.
Make his face to shine.
Make his face to shine.
Shine upon you.
Shine upon you.
May the Lord bless you.
May the Lord bless you.
May the Lord keep you.
May the Lord keep you.
Make his face to shine.
Make his face to shine.
Shine upon you.
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 D-I-S-C-I-P-L-E disciple. D-I-S-C-I-P-L-E disciple. disciple, disciple. What do you want to be? A disciple. Really want to be a disciple. Really want to be a disciple. Really want to be a disciple. It's true. I want to follow you. I really want to be a disciple. Really want to be a disciple. Really want to be a disciple. It's true. I want to follow you. I want to go into the world and tell every nation about the love of Jesus and his gift of salvation. I'll tell my little brother and my big sister too. I'll tell all the kids in my neighborhood all about you. I really want to be a disciple. Really want to be a disciple. Really want to be a disciple. It's true. I want to follow you. I really want to be a disciple. Really want to be a disciple. Really want to be a disciple. It's true. I want to follow you. It's written in the Bible in Matthew 28 to go and make disciples. There ain't no need to wait. So get up on your feet and go marching out the door. Tell everybody you meet about Jesus Christ our Lord. I really want to be a disciple. Really want to be a disciple. Really want to be a disciple. It's true. I want to follow you. I really want to be a disciple. Really want to be a disciple. Really want to be a disciple. It's true. I want to follow you.
Welcome back. Wow, it's so great to worship Jesus. It's one of my favorite things to do. But while we were gone, did you guess who our hero was? If not, here is one more clue that should help you out. To save his life from the Egyptians, his mother hid him in a basket and floated it down the Nile River. Now, I bet you know who it is now. That's right, it's Moses.
And you are correct. It's me, Moses. Now, I had a very different start to my life than most Hebrew babies. Pharaoh was afraid of my people, and so he made all of us slaves to him. And to control our population, he also decided to kill all of the newborn Hebrew baby boys. Can you believe it? What a cruel thing he did. And that, guys, that was supposed to be me. But God had other plans for my life. And so he gave my mother this crazy idea to hide me in a basket in the Nile River. Can you believe it? And there I was found by Pharaoh's daughter, who decided to raise me as her own Egyptian son. Wow, what a turn of events. So here I was being raised as royalty while my own people worked as slaves. And while palace life was pretty comfortable for me, I knew I had a choice to make, to live as an Egyptian or to follow God and return to my people.
Well, it took a little bit of time for God to work things out in Moses' life. Moses did choose to follow God and return to his people. And that led to those amazing stories about all the things that Moses did with God's help. And while those stories were so awesome, it was something else that actually made Moses a hero. It says in Exodus 33 verse 11 that God would speak to Moses face to face as one speaks to a friend. Whoa! The thing that made Moses a hero was that he lived as a friend to God. But what does that exactly mean, that Moses was a friend to God?
That is a great question. To be a friend to God is different than the way we treat our friends. For Moses to be a friend to God meant that Moses was obedient and he did what God asked. It meant that Moses spent time praying and talking to God. It meant that he had to have faith in God to help him be courageous to lead his people out of Egypt.
Why don't we look at a couple of examples from Moses' life to help us understand how Moses was considered a friend to God. Well, let's start where God asked Moses to lead his people, the Hebrews, out of slavery from Egypt to the promised land. Moses' story of becoming a great leader and man of God started when God spoke to him in a unique way while he was watching over his sheep.
It was unique, all right. I was tending my father-in-law Jethro's sheep, way out in the wilderness. It was near a very special mountain called Mount Sinai, the mountain of God. But we will talk more about that a little bit later on. So I was just caring for my sheep, looking for pasture, when all of a sudden I spotted a burning bush and it was on fire. What was going on here? And while that did happen in the desert, there was something very strange going on. Even though the bush was on fire, it was not being burned up. What kind of bush was this? I had to get a closer look. And so when I came closer, something happened that was even more incredible. The bush spoke. Have you ever heard of that before? The only time I ever heard a bush speak was when one of my friends was hiding behind it. But there was no one hiding behind this bush. I soon found out it was God, and he was speaking out of the bush.
Moses, take off your sandals. You are on holy ground. I am the God of your ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
I immediately took off my sandals, and then I just had to cover my face because I was afraid to look at God. And then he spoke some more.
Moses, my people are crying out because of their slavery. I want you to lead my people out of slavery from Egypt into the promised land. I want you to go before Pharaoh and tell him he has to let my people go.
As soon as I heard that God wanted me to go before Pharaoh and tell him to let the Hebrew people go, I was so afraid. Oh, guys. See, I grew up in his palace and I knew that he was a powerful man. And here I was, just a simple shepherd. Why would Pharaoh even listen to me? But then God made a promise. He promised that he would do lots of miracles in front of Pharaoh to prove that God had actually sent me. But what about my own people? Would they listen to me? And then again, God said,
Tell them that Yahweh, the God of their ancestors, has sent you. Tell them that the I am who I am has sent you.
These were very powerful words about God. These words would let the people know that it was the eternal, all-powerful, one true God who had sent me. But I have to be honest, even after being reminded about who God was, I was still afraid to go. See, guys, sometimes when I talk around other people, the words, they get sort of tied up in my mouth. And I was afraid that would happen when I would go and speak to Pharaoh or my Hebrew people. So to help me out, God sent my brother Aaron. He would join me and he would speak the things that God told to me. And while it was a hard thing to do in the end, I chose to follow and obey God and do what he asked. I would go before Pharaoh and before my people, and I would lead them out of slavery into the promised land with God's help.
So Moses chose to follow and obey God, even though it would be so scary to go before Pharaoh and the Hebrew people. Moses knew that God would be faithful to watch over him. Moses choosing to follow and obey God is one of the reasons that Moses was called a friend of God. Grow kids, do you know that when we choose to obey God, it makes us a friend of God too? Now, before we get to the next part of our story, let's take a commercial break and learn about why it's important to follow and obey. Okay, let's see here. So there's this piece and then there's this piece. But Wait, what? This doesn't go together. This is so confusing. I don't understand, but how about all of these? Where
Hey,
did it...
Sherilyn, what are you trying to do here?
Well, I bought this piece of furniture, but I'm having no luck putting it together.
Well, I can see that. Would you like some help? Because, at my age, I know a thing or two about assembling furniture.
Well, I really think I can do it by myself.
Okay, if you want to. Hey, Sherilyn, I see you're really struggling doing this. I would really love to give you some help.
Okay, yeah. You know what? I
Yeah?
think I could really use some help.
Great. Okay, first, let's start with the instructions here.
Instructions?
Uh-huh.
Wait, what do you mean? What
Well-
do you use instructions for?
Well, then then you know what to put together, how to put it together. Otherwise, if you don't have this, then you can make it all crooked and it can be very difficult.
Oh, wow, that makes so much sense. That's why I couldn't figure it out. Wow, I really should have followed your advice a lot sooner.
Yeah, but that's okay. I'm here to help.
Well, thank you so much. It makes me actually think about Moses.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Well, because he was so good at following God's instructions and obeying God.
You are right on that.
Welcome back to our story. What a great reminder how important it is to trust God and follow His instructions. Now, following and obeying God was not the only reason that Moses was called a friend of God. He was also a friend of God because he chose to be courageous and trust God. After Moses said yes to obeying God, Moses would have to go before Pharaoh many times before he would finally let the Hebrews go. This took great courage because Pharaoh would get angry every time Moses would come to see him. But finally, after God had sent many plagues, he did let them go. Now Moses was free to lead the people out of Egypt, but again, it would take great courage to trust God and lead over 1 million people out of Egypt and into the desert.
Over 1 million? That is lots of people. So while leading all those people out of Egypt and to the promised land would require Moses to be courageous and to trust God. Now there was something ahead that would require even more trust and courage. You see, shortly after the Hebrews left Egypt, Pharaoh changed his mind. He wanted to capture the Hebrews and turn them back into slaves again.
Oh, what have I done? Letting all those Hebrew slaves get away. Prepare my chariots, prepare my army. We are going to bring them back to Egypt so they can become my slaves again.
So Pharaoh chased Moses and all the Hebrew people, and he trapped them right against the Red Sea. When the people saw the Egyptian army coming, they panicked, and they thought for sure that they were going to be captured or even killed. Whoa! But guys, this is where God would again ask Moses to trust him and to be courageous.
That's right. In the moment, God told me not to be afraid and to trust Him because He would fight for us and deliver His people. The first thing God did was put a huge pillar of fire between the Egyptians and us to watch over us and protect us. Then God asked me to do something I had never done before. He asked me to pick up my staff and then hold it out over the Red Sea and part the water so that we could walk across on dry land. Can you believe it? So I trusted God and I held my staff over the water, And what happened next was almost impossible to believe. The waters parted, and then God sent a great wind to dry the ground so that we could walk through in the middle of the sea. And believe me, guys, this took lots of courage, but I knew in my heart that I could trust God. And wow, what a powerful God we serve.
So not only did Moses obey God, but he chose to be courageous and trust God. Sometimes, guys, being brave or courageous means we choose to trust God and His power to help us when we are afraid. This is what Moses did, and this is why he was considered a friend of God.
So Moses was a friend of God because he chose to obey Him and to trust Him and be courageous. But there is one more reason Moses was considered a friend of God, and that was because Moses spent time with God, talking and praying to Him. Throughout Moses' journey, God would regularly meet and talk to Moses.
That's right. Of all the amazing things I got to do with God, meeting with Him and spending time with Him in prayer, it was my favorite time with God. It was just the two of us, my special time with Him. And sometimes it would last for days and days that we'd be together. And then 2 months after leaving Egypt, we journeyed back to Mount Sinai. And maybe you guys remember that mountain. It was here where God met me through the burning bush. And here, God would call me up the mountain. Even a few times we would meet there together. Sometimes He would give me instructions on how to lead the people. Another time, He gave me what you know as the 10 Commandments. Those were God's holy laws that would help the people obey Him. And after we moved on from the mountain, I would meet with God in a special tent. And after I'd been with God, I would be so filled with His awesome presence that my whole face would glow. Guys, it was so bright, I had to wear a veil because the people would get scared of me when they saw me coming. And I will never forget those times I spent with God. And while talking and listening to God, I learned just how my God was so full of power and strength. But I would also say that I learned that He was my friend, full of wisdom and full of love. Wow, that Moses lived an amazing life. He was definitely a Bible hero. And you know what made him a Bible hero? It was because he was a friend of God. He was a friend to God because he obeyed God, he was courageous, and he trusted Him, and because he spent time talking and praying with Him. Wow. Hey guys, as we have said all along, you too can be a friend of God. And just like Moses, we are God's friend when we choose to obey, trust, and spend time talking and listening to God in prayer. So let's close in prayer today and ask God to help us grow into being good friends to Him. All right? So you can just fold your hands and close your eyes and even follow along at home right now. Dear God, we thank You for the amazing story of Moses and how he was such a great friend to You. And God, today we ask that You would help us to grow in being a friend to You as well. Help us to trust You. Help us to spend time listening and praying to You. God, we ask that You, through Your Holy Spirit, would just strengthen us and grow us to be a greater friend with You. In Your name we pray, amen.
Stories of the Bible. Moses, God's servant. This is Moses, who was an Israelite boy born in a time when Israelite boys were not supposed to live. By faith, Moses' parents hid him for 3 months after he was born because they saw he was no ordinary child, and they were not afraid of Pharaoh. You see, Moses lived in Egypt, and the Israelites were slaves to the Egyptians. But God had a plan for His people and Moses. Moses was adopted into the Pharaoh's family and grew up in the Egyptian palace. By faith, Moses refused to be known as the son of Pharaoh's daughter. He chose to share in the pain of his people rather than enjoy the fleeting pleasures of sin, for he was looking ahead to his great reward. When Moses had grown up, he made a big mistake and fled Egypt for fear that he would be killed. He came to live with the Midianites for many years. One day, God spoke to Moses through a burning bush and called him back to Egypt to fulfill his plan. But Moses was afraid and didn't think he was the right man for the job. So God gave Moses his brother Aaron as a helper. So Moses went back to Egypt. He and Aaron asked Pharaoh to let God's people go. After much hardship due to the Pharaoh's hardened heart, Moses led the Israelites out of Egypt and towards the Promised Land. It was by faith that Moses left the land of Egypt, not fearing Pharaoh's anger. He kept right on going because he kept his eyes on the one who is invisible. It was by faith that the people of Israel went through the Red Sea as though they were on dry ground. And then God's people wandered in the desert for many years, even though the way to the Promised Land only took a few days. While wandering in the desert, God gave the Israelites food to eat.
What's that?
And water to drink, and was with them as they made their way to the Promised Land. God gave them many other laws and rules to live by to keep them safe and to set them apart as His own people. He gave them 10 commandments about how they should live. Through it all, God took care of His people and used His servant, Moses, to accomplish His good plan.